AJAA Globe. Last segment, the lightning round, I like to call it. Lieutenant Dennis Tueller is with us on the line from Utah, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Sorry to shorten your interview, Dennis, but item of business that I had to get to.
Not a problem. And that second book I find intriguing. Reminds me of my father. He certainly did instill within me the importance of being a gentleman. I'm glad to see people writing about that in our society.
More gentlemanliness leads to less yelling of, drop the weapon!
One would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. I'll tell you what, send me an email after the program and remind me after next week, and I'll mail you my copy of the book. It's sort of a bonus for being on America Armed and Free. Anybody that wants to promote the effusion of knowledge, in my opinion, deserves to be rewarded for that, so that it's the thing you get more of the thing you reward. So I want to do it publicly. Lieutenant Dennis Tueller, do you see law enforcement officers getting cavalier with firearms due to long-term familiarity with them?
To a degree, and that concept of familiarity breeds contempt. We see it more often in people driving and using cell phones. But it's hard to imagine anything more potentially hazardous than driving an automobile at freeway speeds and trying to text message somebody. Yes, police officers who carry guns on a daily basis run the risk of becoming casual about them. We have to remind ourselves that it's when we become casual that it often leads to casualties. But I will say that certainly in the last decade, perhaps 2 decades, I have seen significant and dramatic improvements in law enforcement firearms training in the United States.
Do you train outside the United States as well?
Occasionally. My position with Glock, doing armor courses and firearms instructor workshops, I've had a few occasions to train our colleagues up in Canada.
Never in England?
Mostly in the United States. Years ago, I presented at an ILFE conference, the International Association of Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors, at a conference in Switzerland, and that was a great opportunity for me to get to work with folks from many other parts of the world.
Did you go to any shoots and fests?
No, I would enjoy that. The name Tueller was originally spelled T-U with an umlaut, L-L-E-R, Tueller. And my ancestors are from Switzerland, and great tradition there of firearms ownership and shooting. So I would someday enjoy the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, go and shoot with a real assault weapon. Mike, you're live on America Armed and Free with Lieutenant Dennis Tueller. Quick question. We're down to the last 5 minutes. Actually, last 4.
Quick question. I own only one firearm. I got a 12-gauge shotgun, and I keep it locked up in a trunk. So, in effect, I don't have it, you know. What do you think about me getting it out and load it and have it in the house somewhere? And what would be a good, safe place? I mean, I'm troubled whether I should have it out and loaded or keep it in the trunk.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If you have it in the trunk, you don't, as you pointed out, you don't really have it. You just think you do. It's a symbol. It's a talisman, not a tool. If you have it in the trunk. But I'll let Lieutenant Tueller answer that, and we're going to have you take that answer on the air. Dennis?
I'm not sure I have a perfect answer. Not knowing enough about this man's household. Who else is around? Are there children who might have access to it? We always, those of us who consider firearms for self-defense, need to balance safety and readiness, and that's a very personal decision. How quickly you can access your defensive firearm. You might want to think, too, about hardening your defenses, because somebody you might have to fend off from your own home. What have you done to keep them out? Do you have good locks? Do you use good locks? Do you lock your doors and windows at appropriate times? Do you have an alarm system? There are a lot of things we can do beyond just loading a gun and having it available. That's just part of the overall equation.
One of the things that I do with one of my defensive shotguns is I have it in the cabinet that also holds the panel for the alarms. And my alarm is set up on a panic alarm. So I can reach into the cabinet, pop the panic alarm, which causes a 120 dB siren to face the front door, and it'll make it, you can't do anything except put your hands over your ears against that siren, number one. Number two is, that's where the shotgun is. And also, if you're concerned about children in the home, one of the things you can do is use a trigger lock on a shotgun, although I don't recommend trigger locks generally, and wear the key around your neck. That way you can be within a few seconds of having a loaded gun, and yet it's still locked up. The other thing you could do is you could use a type of firearm that has a magazine disconnector safety like some Smith & Wessons, and so lock the magazine away, leave the gun where you can reach it, but put the magazine in a place that you can't get to without a key, then the child can't get it. But that's just some ideas that I have.
Yeah, and that technique you talk about, I know of an individual who did just that. He would carry the magazine on his person and keep the pistol on the mantelpiece unloaded. It's relatively simple to keep a magazine with you, and his rationale was, if I can get to the pistol, I can have it loaded. But anybody who accesses the firearm without the loaded magazine, of course, it can't be fired.
And if the bad guy does...
I'll have to apply some common sense to what we do with this.
Yep. And if the bad guy does get in and grab a hold of the gun, it sure does show motive, intent, and capacity all in one move, right?
Yeah, well, you can make a good case, too, for the concept of out of sight, out of mind, and you find a place to keep it where it's not readily visible.
Mm-hmm. The only problem with the out of sight, out of mind philosophy is that when you translate it into Russian, it comes back, "Comrade, the vodka is ready, but the meat is underdone."
A problem I'm not likely to have.
Dennis Tueller, you've been a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Theme music is coming up any second. And do you have like a website or anything you want to promote?
I don't right now, Charles, but you've reminded me that perhaps I should be doing that. You're a great host, and very much appreciate you inviting me to be on your program.
My pleasure. Let's not make it an isolated incident. Let's have it happen again on a fairly regular basis.
It would be my pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. I want to encourage each and every one of you to be vigorous, not violent. Be vigilant, not vituperative. In liberty, I'm Charles Heller.